Morning, Mike.
Good morning. Just for the record, I like these better at 7:30. I don't know why.
Because you're up at 3:30.
Well, that might have something to do with it.
Good to go.
All right, since we're live going, we will start the March 11th DDA meeting. Obviously, Becky, we can take a roll call just by visual. I first would like to start with our new board member. If Mark, if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you joined the board, that'd be awesome.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. My name is Mark Weinrich. I'm originally from Marquette. Moved away when I was 18, lived in various parts of the state and ultimately the world for about 20 years, and eventually found a way to move myself and my family back here after learning how great of a place this is. So just decided to, excuse me, was encouraged by a friend to explore civic opportunities for volunteering and giving back. And this came up. And so I thought, hey, I live downtown. I see everything that happens downtown. And so I thought it would be a great place to start. So here I am.
Well, I think that's a great reason to be here, and welcome. We definitely can use you.
Well, I'll do what I can.
Sure. Well, with that, I guess we'll go to additions and approval of the agenda. Becky, are there any additions to the agenda?
I do have one item I'd like to speak to. I don't know that we necessarily need to add it as an addition to the agenda, but I would like to seek board approval to go ahead with the purchase of the 4 pay stations for the 100 block of West Washington Street. So we can either add that as a separate agenda item or discuss it under our parking committee report.
I'm fine doing it under parking. I don't think there's any issues there. We're going to vote either way, right? So
Sounds good. That's all I had then.
Perfect. If everyone's had a chance to take a peek at the agenda, if I can get a motion to approve, that would be great.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and support from Megan. Well, she was in first, it looks like. So all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? Perfect. Okay. Since Sean jumped off, I already asked him. There was no one in the waiting room, so I'm assuming we have no one for public comment.
I'm still here. No one's there.
Thanks, Sean.
He's just hiding. He does that all the time.
Smart guy for sure. No public comment. We'll move to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our last meeting, bills for approval, financial reports. I hope you all have had a chance to take a peek at those. If there's any questions, obviously bring them up right now. Otherwise, we can get a motion to approve those.
I'll make that motion as well.
I'll support that.
Thank you, Eric. Good motion and support to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed?
And just for the record, I want to remind Eric that Jack was the one keeping the eye on all this stuff. So if we all vote along with you.
Pressure's on.
The pressure's on.
He's joking, but he's not. Just remember that. A motion passed. So let's get to new business. Becky, I'll let you start off here with our item number 1.
Sure. So under new business, we do have 2 event support proposals to consider today. The first is from the Masonic Arts Theater and Innovation Company. This is a request for a continuation of their drive-in movie series that they started last fall, and they had received DDA board approval for that series of events. They're looking to do 6 dates between May and the end of the year. We have created a new special events permit that they've submitted, which it's a very detailed account of what their events will look like. It accounts for things like licensing, insurance, setup, tear down, very comprehensive. So I feel as though we have a good idea of what their event will look like, what they're asking for of the DDA. And to that point, what they're asking for is, once again, approval to use the upper level of the Bluff Street ramp for these 6 movies. As we talked about at our last board meeting, we are asking them to pay $50 per showing to help offset our maintenance costs. So that's included in this as well. The movies that they want to show are listed and are all rated PG except for the showing of Grease, and Grease is rated PG-13. So that would be subject to our approval if we feel as though that's appropriate. Just as a bit of history for some of the newer board members, they had wanted to play a rated R movie last fall, and there were some concerns about that. So we ended up declining that particular request. So I guess the conversation would be, what level do we feel comfortable at as far as the movie ratings and what we allow? With that said, I mean, I feel like it's a very thorough proposal. We've been through this with them before, so we have a better working relationship moving forward. So I'm confident and comfortable in recommending that we go ahead and approve their request. But I'm open to questions from the board.
I thought Grease was a decent movie. I mean, I PG-13 seems, I mean, I don't want to mean like it was an Academy Award winning movie. I just think it's decent to be played in the public. I know what you were thinking, Jeremy. And but I mean, PG-13 I think is safe. If Grease represents PG-13 as a normal, I'm perfectly fine with that level. But I have to admit, I don't go to the movies very often, so I'm not an expert.
I will say, just looking at the proposal, I agree with Mike 100%. But looking at the start time for Grease, it's 9 p.m. So I think at that time, PG-13 is probably appropriate. I would say that most kids that are going to be affected by a PG-13 movie walking down the street aren't going to see that one. So I wouldn't have an issue with that, and I'd be in support of everything here, as Mike would be also, it sounds like.
I will say they provided a very detailed safety and emergency plan. I was impressed.
Yeah, it seems like they actually took the time this time, to better than the last couple proposals we have, from them. But does anyone else have any feedback they want to share?
No, I think it seems reasonable what they're looking to do. I was glad to see that they kind of laid off it in the peak summer months, July, August, and weren't trying to do something then, to compete with other stuff that's going on possibly during the summer months. So seems reasonable from my standpoint.
Well, good.
To that point too, Eric, and for the rest of you, we will be doing that repair job on the upper level of the Bluff Street ramp. That time frame is yet to be determined, but I'm anticipating it to be August or September. So we have had conversations with them that their dates for those particular months will have to be flexible, dependent upon what that construction schedule will look like. And they're agreeable to that.
Do you?
Go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I agree with you guys. I think Grease is fine, especially for the later start time. Do you think we should be in communication with them for any future PG-13 movies? It's based off of which one it is, or is PG-13 allowed no matter what movie it is?
My thoughts would be that I don't know that we want to scrutinize every movie, because we might have varying opinions as to whether it's viewable or not. We kind of just, I mean, unless it's something, again, I'm not a movie expert, but unless I think it just simplifies by leaving it PG-13 and saying PG-13, even to go to Jeremy's point, must start at 9 o'clock or later, something like that. I mean, I don't see a whole lot of movies. I'm sorry. I'm old.
You're
you
not a
know.
movie buff?
John Wayne movies.
Exactly. I'm a what do you call it? Turner movie channel.
Turner Classic Movies?
Turner Classic Movies guy. Drives my wife nuts. But I'm black
Well,
and white all the way.
I will say that a late 70s PG-13 movie might be different than a 2021 PG-13 movie, but I think it's probably still a safe sort of cap. So
My 2 cents. My 2 cents would just be to have that 9 o'clock start time. I think that pretty much solves any possible conflict that anyone might kick up over it.
Awesome.
Yeah, agreed.
Becky, do we need a vote on this? I don't think we do we?
Yes.
Okay, well,
She's not going to take responsibility for this crap.
she sure doesn't want to. I like it. Well, if we've all had a chance to look at the proposal, I would like a motion at this point.
Somebody else's turn.
I'll move on it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and support to approve the MATI contract, I guess, as it's written here, for all of these movie dates and just kind of what's going on. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Just to note that the motion contains the 9 o'clock start for the, is that in the contract or is that something we added?
It's in their contract already.
Okay, thanks. I guess that lets you know if I read it or not. Huh?
Yeah. We've come to understand that.
Damn, I got to watch what I say.
You're retiring. It's fine. Let's move on, I guess. Get to our second spot of new business, which is for, looks like flag request from Pride Fest, I believe. Becky, you want to say that?
Yes, that's correct. So that's the second request that we received from the UP Rainbow Pride Group. They had planned on doing their Pride Fest, I believe, down at Lower Harbor Park, but again, because of the COVID restrictions, they aren't able to do that. So in lieu of that event, they are having a procession throughout the city. The map was provided to you. It's pretty lengthy, kind of covers a lot of ground citywide, including downtown. And so as part of that, they have submitted their application to display flags downtown for the day of June 26th, which is also the day of their procession. They, according to the stipulations of our flag policy, will be providing all of the flags to us. And our maintenance staff will be installing and taking them down. As part of the request, we asked for $250, and that goes to cover the maintenance costs of doing so. So with that, our policy does also state that we submit these requests for board approval. So I'm bringing it to the board for discussion and approval if you so desire.
I have a question. Didn't we go through not just Pride Fest, but didn't we come up with part of our policy was that we're limiting our flags to just like university? And I remember that discussion sometime.
Yeah, in the guidelines for the flag policy, it does say that the event has to take place within the downtown district.
Okay.
Or the organizers of the event have to have a physical address within the district boundaries. So the address that we were provided is a PO box. So this group doesn't necessarily have a physical address here, but the procession does at least partially go through downtown.
Well, I guess my initial thoughts are that, I mean, when we talked about this previously, I mean, I think I don't even know if Pride Fest was the topic, but we were getting requests from all kinds of different special interests to put up flags. And I thought we narrowed that policy down so that we would have some ownership in the downtown area as part of the flags that we put up. And honestly, I hate that it's the Pride Fest that's the topic here, because it's in no way homophobic, I don't think, but I think we have to stick to our policy in the sense that they have to, I mean, the PO boxes, anybody can have a PO box. I mean, a physical, except for the university, I think was an exception that we made because they had been having parades and flags for years and years.
Right, they were
Uh,
grandfathered in,
Yeah,
essentially.
they were grandfathered in, and maybe the UP 200. I think there might have been a couple others, but I really don't want to open this door. My recommendation would be not to open this door because then, before you know it, we'll be getting other requests that we may not agree with, but meet the policy or don't meet the policy because we've weakened on it or lessened on it. And, just my thoughts. So I would not be in favor of doing it unless they actually have a physical presence in the downtown, physical address in the downtown.
Becky, didn't you say it was or? Like they had to have a presence, a physical address, or it had to be an event taking place in the downtown district? Or is it and?
According to the policy, is the Marquette DDA may put up flags for the following: 1, U.S. flags for state or federal holidays; 2, NMU flags; and then 3, events taking place within the DDA district; 4, events put on by a business with a physical address within the district. So I guess it doesn't necessarily say and or, it just says that we may put up flags for the following.
But they have to have an address in the DDA. That's what I heard you say.
So just to give a little background on our previous thoughts on this, if I remember right, I believe that it was the Masonic Association that requested flags for downtown for a large group gathering at our the last time we brought this up. And if I remember right, we did not grant it at that time because of this same issue. And this is a business, or not a business, but it's an organization that has a presence downtown. I mean, I guess I don't know that we have precedence either way for really anything that we've actually set in stone. So I'm kind of, I like the idea of supporting Pride Fest myself personally. But 2, I think we need to have some sort of precedence from a DDA standpoint that's, actually understandable from our members, because we clearly don't.
Yeah,
Right.
my question would be how many requests like this do we generally get in a year? I mean, is this 1 or 2 a year, or is there multiple requests throughout the year for people to put different flags up?
Well, traditionally we were getting multiple requests, which is what inspired the need for a policy and for financial contribution to cover maintenance time, because prior to, we were putting up flags for a number of different events and incurring that cost. And we were finding that our maintenance staff was constantly putting flags up and taking them down and having to accommodate, our own downtown decorations and flag installations and work around the various requests that we were getting. So this policy was put into place to try to make that a little bit more structured and a little bit more prohibitive because of that reason, to ask people to have to comply with these guidelines. Also because in the past, we were having to supply the conduit for the flags and attaching the flags to the conduit, and it ended up being a pretty significant undertaking. So that's a bit of history of how this policy came to be.
I think too, when we were first approached by Pride Fest, the first time they wanted to put up flags, they were holding their festival at Tourist Park. And that was what struck the addition in the policy for it having to be an event downtown if you're not a business downtown, was because then Hiawatha Music Festival wanted to have it. And I think there was one other event that wanted to have it where they were all the way on the other side of town. And yes, we were, it's a cohesive town or whatever, but it was like, well, how does this affect the DDA and stuff? Personally, I think since the event is taking place downtown as a procession, I think that we should do it. I think that we have seen the requests dwindle. in the previous years. And since every request is subject to board approval anyway, I think that we have some control and oversight over which events we want to support and approve in the future if this sparks any kind of opposite group that might want to hold something, because I know that was a point of contention last discussion as well.
So I'll piggyback off of that because I do agree with you, Nicole. I think this is something that I would assume most or all of us would support. But kind of piggybacking off of Mike's comments, and I think the reason we need to actually have something set in stone here where we change this policy and actually have it make more sense than it does. If we don't have something written, then we are setting a precedence basically against what our policy is stating now. And it's really inviting any group, whether it's a group that's anti this, but any group to apply. And we're not a political group, to be making these decisions. We shouldn't need to make decisions on whether we think, this is appropriate for the DDA. Theoretically, we should have this in writing in a policy. So it's simple enough to where we have approval, because what one board, thinks now, the next board may not think that. So I do, while I 100% agree with Nicole, I think to piggyback that, we need to get something more in writing that states, this is something that is benefiting the downtown or taking place in the downtown. I think eliminating the residency request makes sense. If it's happening in downtown, let's go with that. There should be some other caveat there that we can use as a control. I don't know what that is. I'm open to hearing other thoughts for sure. But I think it's a sticky situation. Go ahead, Mike.
Let me just caution that I think having a location downtown, an actual physical location, is it's not a significant hurdle, but it's not an insignificant hurdle either. I think it's just the balance, it's the perfect balance for me, because I'm just going to throw it out there. Let's say a Nazi group wants to have a rally downtown. Okay, they meet the criteria. I mean, I don't think we want to, I don't want to open it up to that kind of a diverse application, because trust me, if you have that residency requirement, I think that's just enough to keep, and forgive me for saying this, for keeping the events that we would prefer to support interested, or the ones making the application. I just think if we take that little caveat out of there, I mean, you'll be getting requests from all over the frickin' country and state. I mean, from today's such and such a day, and you know what, we're going to have a little march today in front of the post office, or we're going to be in the Commons, but we hail from, Austin, Texas. I mean, I just think that's enough to put us where we are, because if you listen, what Becky first started to say is that we used to have a lot more requests. And the reason we don't now is because we've created this streamlined, somewhat restrictive, but I don't think over restrictive policy. So we're not getting all these multiple requests where we have to sit there and pick them. And let's be honest, I mean, if we pick and choose every time one of these comes, which we're going to do anyway, I mean, it's going to be based on the preferences or the opinions of all of us. And, it's not going to be very objective. And I think by leaving that in there leaves that level of objectivity that gives us some top cover to say, hey, you got to be in the DDA to do this, because I just think it leaves the door too wide open for not only the ones we want to have, but the ones we don't want to have too. Just my thoughts.
Why don't we just add something and say, it's up to the discretion of the board if the organization is considered like a hate organization or promotes discrimination of any kind. It will be up to the discretion of the board. Adding that caveat in there, then that can weed out any of the negative groups.
That's subjectivity again. That's not the objectivity I'm talking about. I mean, we may not all agree that some of us might be Nazis. I don't know. I mean, I look at Johnson, and he scares me a little bit. you know?
The way I see, like, this application seems like it fits with the current guidelines. So if we want to make changes to the policy after that, I think that's great if we want to do that, but as it fits, as it reads now, I would see that it fits those guidelines. It's not clear if it has to be and have a location and be located, or have the event taking place downtown. I don't know, the way it reads, it seems like it fits. And if there's nothing else going on, I wouldn't, like, why not?
Yeah, I do agree with that point too, Megan, is that the current guidelines, it does fit. So if we were to approve this now, maybe we need to make additions to those guidelines for future requests. And maybe we need to explicitly say, like, a PO box doesn't count. You must have a physical address or building in the district. And that could help approve what they're asking for now, and then also give us that objectivity that we're looking for the future too, by kind of refining that policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable changing a policy before, making that decision, like going in and changing it and be like, oh, well, now you don't qualify because PO boxes don't count.
Yeah, so I agree with both of you. Becky, if you could just read the portion in there, I would like to hear it again as far as our policy about the address portion of that, just so we can kind of hear it one more time.
Okay. So again, it says the Marquette Downtown Development Authority may put up flags for the following, and then we have our 3 points. Number 4 says events put on in the Marquette area by a business or nonprofit that have a physical address within the Marquette Downtown Development Authority district. Flags to be provided by the event organizers. And then it goes on to specify sizes and what the flag specifications would be.
Okay, so
Physical,
Becky, I guess.
Sorry,
Becky,
go.
Sorry, Mike.
Nope, you.
Becky, ultimately you're the executive director. In your opinion, reading this, what is your thought with does this meet the criteria currently?
I have mixed feelings on it, honestly. I guess without having the physical address, that is a concern to me. Also, events put on in the downtown, while this one is partially put on in the downtown, it's not, that's just a small portion of their procession. So my own personal thoughts on it are, I would prefer to support events that are specifically within the downtown. For what that's worth, I don't know that, that's my own personal preference. As far as point number 4 or number 3 about taking place in the downtown, I guess, yes, this does. I have some concerns just about wanting to remain neutral on issues that are potentially divisive, like the religious aspect or politics, or I think there has to be some consideration for remaining neutral on sensitive topics, much like with the homeless situation where we had split feelings between different businesses downtown if we wanted to support the 24-hour homeless shelter or not. And I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that we represent 400 business and property owners, and what we portray organizationally, supporting one way or the other. I think that it gives me pause in some ways, thinking that I don't want to cause a ruckus, so to speak, or upset one group or another group. It's I don't know. I would say yes, it fits the policy as it stands, but I do have some concerns about it.
I guess I look at it like whatever group it is, just by putting flags up, the DDA putting flags up, it's looking like we're supporting that group, no matter who it is.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a slippery slope to get onto right now, and maybe just keep it for holidays and northern and things like that, and just not have any other flags go up for anything, and then you'll avoid this whole situation.
Perhaps there's something with, it seems like Pride Fest is a single day event. I think it's great, whatever, but I don't really pay attention to the flags, or have in the past. I certainly will in the future. But perhaps it's reserved for something that's more of a multi-day event. You have something like Homecoming, where there are multiple events for Northern. I don't even know what some of the other ones are, but where it's not just a single day event, but it's something like, didn't he do some for like the film festival one year, I think Third Coast or something? It was a multi-day event. Maybe there's something with language with that it's not just it's not just a political rally, because somebody could do it for that. Maybe there's a way to add to the language to get events that are more substantial rather than a single day march through downtown or rally or something.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Mike.
I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to move that we deny this application. If I get support, great. If I don't, I don't. But we deny the application, but then clarify the policy moving forward. See, I interpret this to say they do not have a physical address. And we put the word physical in there, it means you have to live, it's got to be a building or a location. And I can people use PO boxes all the time to get around different requirements. And I think it's, and I agree with Jim, it's kind of a slippery slope. And I would feel the same no matter who this is. And I think, we represent the whole district. I think we need to work a little bit harder on our policy, because I think, Rob's points are valid. Do we need to narrow it more by single versus multiple? I think there could be further discussion, but I think if we approve it now, we're just opening that door to precedents that we don't want to set just yet. And I would move that we deny the request, but also include in that motion that do we have a subcommittee that can deal with this, Becky?
We do business development and promotions.
And then we can turn it over to business development and promotions and ask them to work on the policy or clarify it or whatever. Just my thoughts.
This might be too much, and I don't know if it's worth, but just a point I thought, would it be worth involving the other businesses and asking if they would like to see these flags? Since we are representing all the businesses in the downtown, would it be worth seeing what kind of support there is for it, or what kind of not support there is for it? Just kind of like we did with the homeless, because to that point, with the 24-hour homeless shelter, that was something that we got a lot of feedback about, and that's what based our decision. So maybe we need to get some more feedback before just this group makes a decision. And then also, when is the date of the event again? Because maybe we have a little bit more time for the business development promotions committee to meet first to discuss.
The date is June 26th.
Okay.
But they will need time, to purchase and acquire their flags. So we have to consider that too.
And by then I'll be gone. You won't have to worry about it. But I think, given your point that, my motion would give you time for that committee to actually maybe do the survey if they decide to do the survey or whatever. But the point, the overall point here is that we are, as a group, you can be guaranteed that you're going to get requests from people or groups that you do not want to support. But if you do not have a solid precedent or policy, you're going to be forced to do that. And this might be, this is actually probably a perfect topic for this to be discussed about, or to lead this discussion, because even though I think the overall opinion of everybody is that they want to support this kind of thing, I think there's just enough controversy associated with it that it could trigger us to be a little bit more aggressive in developing a policy. But if no one wants to support my motion, I'm fine with that, and we'll move on.
But we do have a motion on the floor from Mike, and I guess before we move on and see if there's any support, I will add to the point here that, you know, we need to refine this policy 100%, because even if we talk about the physical address, and kind of bumping off of Rob's point, what's to stop the Democratic committee or Republican committee who can put a physical address downtown from asking for a flag if they have a physical address downtown? And at that point, it's solely just our opinion on what we're putting up, what we're allowing to be there, which I don't want to continually ask the board to make a decision based off of their thoughts, and you should have this solid stone, needs to meet certain criteria that actually make sense. My opinion, this criteria doesn't make sense. I do think that as action needs to be taken here to correct it. But with that being said, you know, we do have a motion on the floor from Mike to deny the request as written. Is there any support for that?
I would be supportive of that, just on the grounds that I think it just opens up a can of worms, and until we can get a better policy in place, I think it just opens the DDA up to too much risk, honestly, at this point, when what this could set precedent for. We've said there's no precedent, and we'd be setting it right now. So I think until that policy is further defined and to protect the DDA a little, I would be supportive of denying it as well, until we can get our arms around this a little bit better.
So I'm sorry. We do have a motion and support on the floor. Do we have any further discussion on that for denying this request?
Yeah, I was wondering, instead of denying, can we table the request and give the business promotions development committee time to discuss maybe sending out that survey just for this particular request, and then also redefining the policy as well for future requests?
So I do think that would be appropriate, but since we do have a motion and support on the floor, we will need to take a vote just to kind of see where we're at on that. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I would just counter by saying that I think if the committee addresses this, they shouldn't address it as, do you support a Pride Fest flag? I think it needs to be a survey of, do you support multiple flags, any kind of flag? I mean, if you put this survey out, people are all going to say, yeah, fine, I'm guessing. So I think the overall issue is flags in general that represent specific groups. I would be open to amending my motion to say deny it with the understanding that a reapplication could be made or reconsidered if, which is the same as tabling, but if our policy is in place, if a new policy is in place in time to meet their deadline. I mean, I think that's fair. It puts a little emphasis on your subcommittee to kind of move a little bit, but if that's not appropriate, I'll go with tabling. But I think that whatever, Eric, what do you think?
I agree. Like I said, I mean, once again, as kind of everyone said, nothing particular with this group or what they're looking to do. I would agree if we can table it until we can get our arms around it better and come up with a better policy. I'm fine with that as well. I just, as it sits right now, I can't see moving forward with the application. But if we can put some table and put something better together, I'm okay with that as well.
Go ahead, Jim.
I think as long as we're doing this, we shouldn't just have it be flags, because there are other things put up on those poles during the course of the year for Fresh Coast Festival, and not just the flags, but the things they stick in there as well. So that should probably be addressed along with the flags.
You mean like the wooden cutouts, Jim?
Pardon me?
You mean like the wooden cutouts that have been done in the past?
Anything they put on the poles, which is for display.
And just have it all encompassing? That makes sense.
I agree. So I guess, Mike, at this point, we have a motion from you for denying this request with the caveat of tabling it. You know, once again, once we rewrite the policy, is that what I understand?
Yeah, once a policy is approved, once an approved policy is approved by the board, I mean, I think the board has to consider that new policy and approve it too. So, yeah.
Okay. Personally, I don't know that. I mean, it seems kind of wishy-washy to deny table. So I guess I would rather have a firm direction here. If we want to table this, I'm in favor of tabling it after this discussion, as long as Mike moves to do so and then reports that, which he kind of already has. If we want to table this and bring it up at a later meeting to address again after the business promotion together, that's fine by me.
How about if I just change my motion to say I want to deny it, but with the understanding that they can reapply should the board pass a new or an updated policy.
Okay.
I mean, I just think, I mean, tabling it is a little different. So I want to deny it under these terms, my motion. And then if a policy is changed, or feel free to bring a new application forward.
That makes sense. Eric, do you support that motion?
Yeah, I am supportive of that.
Okay, unless there's further discussion, I want to vote on this motion for denying, with letting them know that they can certainly reapply, and we are going to look into our policy. All those in favor of denying, please say aye.
Aye.
I
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So I think it is 3 in support of denying and the rest opposed to denying.
Kind of what I heard. Maybe you could ask them to raise hands or something. But
We could do that, yeah. So all those in favor of the motion for denial, please raise your hand.
Oh, not denial. Sorry.
Okay, looks like all those opposed. Okay, looks like 5. So as we move on to the next thing, I guess my thought with this is absolutely nothing political. That I don't want to be anything political, but as stated, unless we have another motion on the floor, which I will go up and say I will not support approving the motion for accepting this. Based off of the rules here written, it looks like there's confusion and maybe it's something that we would allow, but I do think that by us denying this motion, it allows us to table it. So my thought here is let's move on from this and basically bring it up again after we rewrite what the actual guidelines are, to see a more interpretive, guideline out there. If everyone's okay with that, I'd like to move on from this as opposed to taking another vote to see if we have support.
I'm fine with that.
Perfect. Is everyone else okay with that?
If I might interject real quick, I think I would definitely strongly get behind the survey to the businesses that we represent, finding out exactly where they stand on this. I think, the wording obviously needs to be pretty delicately written, but ultimately it is their front door through which any procession, whether it's right or left wing or straight up the middle, goes. And I think that that's really an important caveat in any amendments that are made to the language of the guidelines that we're using to determine, ultimately what does go up on those light posts. That's my 2 cents.
I think those are good points, Mark. Eric, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I guess my only question is, where does that leave us and what do we tell them? I mean,
So we, at this point, in my opinion, we move this to old business for our next meeting, and hopefully, basically our event promotions can get on this. Who's on that committee?
Nicole, Megan, and Eric.
Perfect.
And we do have 2 new board members that aren't on subcommittees yet, so I don't know if we want to offer up if either of them are interested in serving on that subcommittee as well.
I'm open to anything, so whatever's needed.
It's a good thing you say that, because if you don't volunteer, you get put somewhere. So. Jeremy gets a little carried away with his power.
True. Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So we're going to move this to old business for the next meeting. And I really hope that we can get this addressed. Either way, at least we can have something in more solid writing that's more understandable, that we're not trying to stuff. It needs to be something that I hope that we never see a request like this come to the board again. It should be that simple, that Becky gets a request. Yeah, this works. It's part of our policy. Yes or no. That's how it should be. Simple as that. But let's move on. When it comes to the rest of our new business, Becky, why don't you touch base on that last event? The last tip.
Sure. Well, when I put the DDA board meeting on the agenda, that was right after restrictions had been eased somewhat by the state as far as meetings in person, and that in-person non-residential gatherings are now allowed up to 25 people. So it was my understanding then that would open up the option for us to return to in-person meetings. However, had some conversations with the city, and the city commission will be meeting back in person, but they're asking all committees and boards to continue to meet remotely for the time being until an overall announcement is put out for everybody to start meeting again in person. So I guess with that, I would just say that we'll continue to meet remotely until that announcement comes out, and kind of take that item off the agenda.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if we get to our committee reports then. Executive Personnel Committee has met. We met with Becky. Oh, geez. When was that? Last week? 2 weeks ago? It's all blurry.
a couple of weeks ago now.
A couple weeks ago. Eric, I'll let you touch base on what we talked about, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think the highlights of what came out of that meeting, a couple things, certainly looking at what we can do as a committee, as a board, to continue to support Becky as, does her job and moves forward with that. So we had some good discussion around that. Becky, basically kept us up to speed or caught us up to speed on her search for a new head of the maintenance department. That seems that continues to go on as she gets applicants. Also spoke a bit around a new, I guess you would call it, assistant director role. Something that I think had been there in the past and had since kind of went away with Becky's, with her becoming the executive director, if you will. Seems like a role she used to fill before that, and that's kind of went away. So the possibility of bringing on one of the current staff into a part-time role, more along those lines, which we were all certainly supportive, based that it could fit in, the current budget and everything like that. But I think those were, from my standpoint, the kind of the highlights of that meeting and what we touched upon.
Yeah, I would agree. Looks like Mike, did you want to add anything to that, or you were probably on the phone, so no worries.
Yeah, I got a multi-million-dollar operation to run here, so no, I heard most of it. That was good. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I have nothing further to add. It's basically what we discussed. So I guess we can move to the Farmers Market Committee.
Okay. Well, Jeremy, if I may just add something before we move on, just an update as far as the maintenance coordinator position. I am doing interviews this afternoon. I have 5 really solid candidates, so hoping to have somebody hired within the next week, but we are at the point of doing interviews and moving that forward. So just to provide a brief update.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's move on then, unless there's anything else from you or anyone else, to the farmers market report. And I believe, we see Jim, myself, and Mike were all on that call. Jim, why don't you touch base on a little bit what we talked about, if you can?
Well, I guess it was kind of a couple different things that were important as far as the farmers market this year. Obviously the COVID, doing online sales, which Sarah didn't really want to do unless she had to. And the Wednesday market, trying to get 15 people to, or 15 vendors to do that on Wednesday in order to make it worthwhile. And kind of went over all the financials of everything. And I think it was, well, we did lose 51,000 this year because of COVID on the farmers market, which is, substantial. But if it wouldn't have been for COVID, it would have been 11,000, if I remember right. Is that correct, Becky?
Correct.
11,000. Okay. So trying to figure out what to do for this coming year. And so we did raise, or the farmers and vendors kind of agreed to go up to $15. And so it was at 20. It was 20 instead of 50.
20 instead.
Bringing in a little more money for it. But it'll still lose probably 20-some thousand at that price, which I guess isn't as bad as 50, but who knows what's going to happen this summer. And I guess, in thinking about all that, and you can say, well, we only lost 11,000 if it wouldn't have been for COVID, but kind of have to remember that we're doing a part-time director instead of full-time. And if you put the other 30,000 in there that we were paying before, that's actually 41,000 that we would have lost if we would have had a full-time director like from before. So I think there's a lot of things in here that should still be addressed going forward here. And, I don't know much longer Sarah will just be able to do this part-time. It seems like she's kind of putting in a lot of hours, and, Sarah has to help her out a little bit now too. So I think we all have to kind of figure out what we're going to do about that.
Mike, you got anything further to add?
Yeah, we agreed what Jim was talking about. We agreed to a temporary increase for this upcoming market for vendor fees to help us get over the COVID hump. I believe the loss was predicted at around 16,000, but the understanding was that by the vendors agreeing to this higher fee, we agreed to also absorb some of the loss coming up just to get us through this next year. And by all practical estimates, when we get back to normalcy, hopefully next 2022 summer, we should be back to where we need to be budget-wise. We agreed as a board to commit $13,000 annually to the market to help subsidize them. And the 11,000 that Jim referred to is within that $13,000 range. So we just got to get over the hump of this summer. And we all kind of agreed that we would all take some of that burden, meaning DDA versus vendors. I would like to add that I think the relationship that we have with the vendors is pretty good right now. I mean, at least they're not yelling at us anymore. And I think the group understands, and they're coming around to understanding how this works and how we want to work together. And they don't see us as adversaries, I don't think, anymore. I think Becky does a great job of putting the finances together and explaining how everything works. And luckily, we have representatives from the vendors who, if they don't understand it right away, they take the time to try to understand it without any real knee-jerk reactions, I think. And I think it's very positive. The only pain in the butt is Jim, and but we just all ignore him. So
Poor Jim. I guess I'll. I
Right,
was gonna
June, June can't come soon enough for me.
I was going to piggyback. I was going to piggyback off of Mike's comments. I don't think anyone hates Jim, but
Thanks, Jeremy.
yeah, no doubt. The overwhelming feel I get from the farmers market, especially, over the last few years, especially for the newer board members, we took on this thing. It was bleeding money like crazy. We had some serious issues. We were trying to figure out, okay, what is an acceptable amount for the DDA to contribute? Because ultimately, the farmers market promotes the downtown. Okay, so that is something that is issue 1A for the DDA. We want to promote the downtown. We want to promote our downtown businesses. So we're comfortable contributing an amount of money. At that time, a couple of years ago, we said 13,000 was an acceptable amount. I think that number has been fluctuating. We've never gotten to 13,000. We're going to pay the bill anyway, obviously, because we have to. The goal here is to get that thing under that 13,000. Becky was able to actually put some numbers together to show us financially, which she called hindsight 2020, which was kind of clever, showing that in a normal year, with the normal amount of revenue we would have received from the vendors, because you have to understand a lot less vendors this year, which means a lot less revenue. We can't have people so close together. So a lot less vendors. But in a normal year, because of the changes we had put in per Becky's spreadsheet, it looked like we would have got there. Probably about $10,000 loss, which that's under our $13,000 acceptable amount. So while it sounds doom and gloom, I think for the most part, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I feel that we're moving in the right direction. If you guys have any passion in the farmers market or interest in it, I would suggest coming to one of our committee meetings or getting to know Sarah Johnson. She seems to be a very good fit for that job. And as we move forward and potentially talk about what the future of the farmers market is, I think she's a great person to have on board, and we're fortunate to have her.
Can I ask a question? Jim brought up a good point. Becky, is she able to stay within her part-time role? Or is it taken off like Jim suggested?
No, she's actually doing very well with the time that she has. We did purchase some specific market management software that is going to make things even easier for her as far as tracking vendors, attendance, placement on the plaza. She's very excited about that. Mike, after you left the meeting yesterday, she did show us a little demonstration of that software. So that's going to help tremendously. And it will also help with the financial side as far as tracking the vendor reimbursements. With the proposal that we have on the floor for the market this year being a Wednesday evening physical market and then a Saturday physical market, I'm really excited about that prospect, because last year we were only able to accommodate half of our vendors. So what this does is, because we're limited in capacity to 40 vendors on Saturday, we would have those folks there that day, but then be able to open up that Wednesday option for minimum 15 vendors. And maybe we fill it up with 40 vendors, who knows? I mean, it all depends on how those applications come in, but in doing that, it's allowing more opportunity for vendors to participate that we unfortunately weren't able to accommodate last year. So I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I think that by focusing just on a physical market and not incorporating an online component and a physical component for this year, that's making it much more manageable for Sarah, well within her abilities to accommodate that setup in a part-time situation. And then as far as Sarah Trumbley in her role, that's the structure that's always been in place. Back when I was assistant director and I was doing the accounts payable, accounts receivable, part of that role is also doing the accounting for the market and cutting those vendor reimbursement checks. So in that regard, things haven't changed necessarily. It's not that that Sarah Tremblay has to assist Sarah time-wise. It's just a matter of what their job duties are and the kind of the division of roles. So I certainly think that we're still on track with Sarah Johnson being part-time and being able to handle the load that comes with the market.
I had a couple of questions about numbers.
Mhm.
Jim, did you say that the vendor fee is going from $15 to $20 this year?
Yes,
Okay. And then
for Saturday.
for Saturday, okay.
Yeah, it's
And
actually
then-
going down on Wednesday.
Okay. What's going to be the Wednesday?
15.
Just 15. Okay.
Yeah.
And-
What we did is we created a couple of different scenarios and then ran the numbers as far as if we kept the vendor fees where they are currently, which would place additional burden on the DDA as far as the financial outcomes. And then if we were to increase to $25 a week from the 15 that it currently is for the Saturday market, that would really place an undue burden on the vendors.
Mhm.
And so what we did essentially is split the difference down the middle and went with the $20 per week increase, or $20 per week, which is a $5 increase over what they were paying before for the Saturday market. And then the Wednesday market, we had just done that 1 year so far as kind of a pilot program. And the fees were quite a bit higher at that point. They were paying $30 a week. So now we're decreasing that to the 15 because this setup is really, again, more to accommodate additional vendors and kind of the overflow, knowing that we can't have a full market on Saturday. So we're approaching the Wednesday market differently and looking at it as it's not going to be as appealing as the Saturday market that's already fully established and people know about it. The Wednesday market's newer, so it's going to be smaller and less hours, so not quite the same level. So it made more sense for us to decrease that fee and try to make it more equitable and like I said, hopefully accommodate more vendors and have 2 successful markets.
Yeah. And then one last question too, from the last meeting that we had when the update was given, it was reported that there was a $28,000 loss for the farmer's market. And then this update that was given mentioned 51,000. So I was just wondering where that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The reason that is because we have our fiscal year, which runs October 1 through September 30th. And so that's where we're looking at that $51,000 deficit. And that's how we as a board function financially. And that's the financial report that we look at monthly and on an ongoing basis and what we use to compare prior years. So from the board perspective, like those are the numbers that we need to be looking at. From the vendor perspective and narrowed down to the farmers market committee, what we were looking at is, okay, let's just look at the calendar year because the market season crosses over different fiscal years.
Gotcha.
So to have a clear snapshot of what this season would have looked like, separate from what would have happened, in the fall the previous year, that was before we had taken the measures of reducing the manager to part-time. I mean, those costs were still part of that 51,000. So it was really an effort to kind of narrow our focus to just that season. And that's where we lost the 28, was just in the 2020 calendar year.
Okay. Thank you.
It makes it difficult with these different timeframes that we're looking at.
Too many numbers. Fix it. Jim, go ahead.
I guess my feeling is looking down the road here, 1, 2, 3 years, how happy is Sarah going to be just making $30,000 and no benefits? And I think if you want to keep someone good, I think we're going to have to look at full-time with benefits again, which will add another 30,000 onto that. And, that's going to be a big loss again. So we were kind of talking about sponsorships or, something like that to kind of get some more income coming in, because all of the expenses are pretty much fixed.
Mhm.
You can't really reduce them anymore. So we need to get more income, and you can't really put that all on the farmers because it's a lot of money extra to pay for that. So it's either trying to look for some sponsorships or, like Becky was talking about, turn the farmers market and turn it over and have it be its own entity, and they can kind of take care of everything on their own. So I don't know what Mike or Jeremy feel about it, but that's kind of how I look at it going down the road here.
Yeah, I will say I think that over the next 3 years, the farmers market's going to look a lot different. I think that all parties involved have a strategic plan of where they want this thing to go, and I'm not so sure the DDA is a part of it. I think that that's something to be discussed in the future. I think Sarah Johnson seems to be fully invested, with or without the DDA possibly, which is totally fine. It seems like it's a passion of hers. As long as she's working within what we need her to do. If she needs more, certainly we could try to figure that out at that point, because she is a valuable employee. But I do think that, like I said, 3 to 5 years from now, this thing may look a lot different, and it may not be a topic of discussion for us anymore. Maybe something completely different. There's just a lot of moving pieces with it, but I think that at this point we have the right people on board to really drive the ship and move it in the direction it needs to go.
Do they receive any MDARD grants? Or were you able to receive any?
There's one, not through MDARD, but it's through the USDA that we've gotten a couple times in the past. And that's something Sarah and I are looking at right now. They're going to be opening up that application period here within the next week or so to see if that's something that we might want to apply for.
For the USDA or for the MDARD?
That's a USDA,
Okay.
the Farmers Market Promotion Program grant. We've had some success with that in the past, so it's a very viable option for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan. Is there anything else with the farmers market? Otherwise, we can move on to our favorite topic, parking. Great. So why don't we hear about the parking committee? Who's on the parking committee?
Jim,
Jim.
Nicole, Tony.
Well, let's hear from Nicole first, since we just heard from Jim.
Okay, so parking committee meeting was a big tutorial on the pay stations that we're looking at getting. Just a lot of Q&A about what they can do, why they're better, this company versus that company. It was Tom, right? Rebecca?
Yeah, Tom met with
I forgot
Traffic
what
and
company
Safety.
he's with. Which
I'm
company
sorry?
is he with again?
He's with Traffic and Safety.
Yeah, traffic and safety. He was very knowledgeable, lots of experience, great customer service. Definitely felt like he had our best interests in mind. We all felt like the pay station, the trial run in the main lot worked really well. So we're excited to purchase that and purchase more of them in the future. There was a lot of conversation about the costs, whether we want to invest in a little bit more higher priced through him now, but you have a better life out of the equipment than the other company. And we did run out of time for our whole agenda because his presentation and our questions were quite lengthy. And that was kind of it.
Jim, do you have anything to add to that? Oh, you're muted, Jim.
I guess I am kind of in favor of these pay stations instead of the individual meters to try and save us some money. And hopefully that's kind of where we're going to be going in the future here. Or even, I was kind of thinking the other day when I was going on 3rd Street, I think it was, and a lot of those meters, there's 2 meters on one pole. I'm just wondering in some places if you could do that instead of mounting you know, 2 separate poles for that and just putting them on one pole and try and save some money there also.
Becky, I know if you want to touch base with more on the parking, and I know we have something you wanted to bring up for a motion to vote on, so feel free.
Yes. So as Nicole just mentioned, we did have a presentation with Tom at the parking committee meeting. We also, Sarah Tremblay and I met with our representatives from IPS, and those are the folks that we've been working with traditionally. They are a vendor currently for our existing meters and pay stations. So they came in and met with us. We had some good conversations with them about their product and their newer version, the M5s, as opposed to the M3s that we have right now. Overall, they made a lot of promises to improve their customer service. As you all know, that's been a problem traditionally, and to promote their newer model. I'm currently running some numbers, doing a return on investment analysis using their numbers, their quotes and proposals, and using Tom's, and also looking at all of our parking across the district where it would make sense to have pay stations where the parking is more condensed, and where it would make more sense to have single space meters, and have come up with a good plan. And again, those numbers are being analyzed to determine the best, most profitable way to move forward and have that return on investment happen as quickly as possible. With that said, I'm looking at this point to order the 4 pay stations that we need for that 100 block of Washington Street project. And those would be coming from traffic and safety based on that trial pay station that we've had in the North Main Street lot, and on the conversations we've had with the parking committee. I didn't have a chance to include the quote in our packets. I'm happy to do a screen share if you guys want to look at it. Otherwise, what we're being offered here, the 4 pay stations for a total of $44,000, being $11,000 a piece. We do have $56,000 in the budget this year for this purpose, keeping in mind that we've purchased that trial unit already. So this would kind of round out our replacement for this fiscal year, knowing that for next fiscal year, we have to look at a broader replacement plan for meters and pay stations. But knowing that this construction project is on the near horizon, we have to start, getting these items in order to make everything happen in a timely fashion. So if you guys do want me to bring up the quote, or okay, let's see. Okay, can you guys see that?
I do.
Okay. So again, there you see the equipment, $40,700, the installation with 1-year warranty being $33,000 for a total of $44,000. And that's for the 4 Loop 2 pay stations, which feature both the credit card and coin acceptance. It's hardwired, so we don't have to worry about solar. It's got a built-in internal heater, which I think will be extremely beneficial given our winter climate, and uses Verizon communications as our current equipment does. And then this quote also includes the receipt paper, coin canister, the stickers that come along with it.
What's the lifespan of this product?
10 years.
Okay. Even in our climate?
Yes.
And then, Becky, there was no monthly fee for the pay stations. It was only for the meters, right?
No, there's a monthly fee for everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about $50 a month.
Okay.
But our current meters and pay stations also have monthly fees. So It just comes with the territory.
Okay, because I was just looking back in my notes from our meeting, and he had mentioned something about a monthly fee of $5.50 per meter. Was that for those Civic Smart, like really advanced ones?
Yeah, that would be for the single space meters,
Okay.
and that's $5.50.
Well, I'm definitely in support of purchasing these 4 pay stations, especially with the Washington Street project happening soon. I think the trial run went great. And so I'd be happy to work with Tom in traffic and safety control. He seems like a really nice guy. He seems genuine, like he wants his product to work. He was a little salesy, but I felt like he would definitely support us. And like you said, over the years, he's always checked in and stopped by to see how we're doing. And so he seems like he generally cares about his job and is good at it.
Yes, I would agree, Nicole. And also he is Michigan based. He's downstate. His company is Michigan based. So he does travel up here quite often and is willing to come whenever we need him. So I appreciate that, as opposed to the company we're working with right now in San Diego, which makes things difficult working across the miles and time zones.
I agree. Okay, sounds like we have support from our committee. Is there a motion at this point for getting this thing approved?
I'll make that motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the 4 pay stations that will be placed on Washington Street through traffic and safety control.
We have a motion and a support from Mike to approve the 4 pay stations to be purchased through traffic and safety control. All those in favor of the motion say aye, please.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Good. Okay, motion carries. Get the pay stations.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, finally, we get to your director's report. I think we're done talking about parking now.
Okay, so I just have a few things to update the board on. First, I wanted to personally welcome you, Mark. Mark and I had a nice conversation Tuesday or yesterday. My days are all mixed up with this busy week, but anyway, we were able to sit down and provide him a nice background on the DDA and also goals and strategies for moving forward. So thank you for taking the time to meet with me. We look forward to working with you. Another thing that is currently in discussion is now that spring is arriving, summer's coming closer, we're still under COVID restrictions. What might that look like for our restaurants and businesses moving forward this summer? You guys probably recall that last year we made some accommodations in partnership with the city to allow for outdoor dining on the sidewalk and in private parking lots. So I'm anticipating, I haven't received any calls yet from restaurants inquiring about it, but I'm anticipating those conversations to be starting here quickly. So we've had some conversations at the city level, and I'll be working with Dennis Stakowitz to see how we want to accommodate that moving forward, knowing that with the latest amendments to the land development code, that outdoor food and beverage service is now permitted as a principal use in the central business district. So that's like our core downtown. So that's going to make it a lot easier for those folks who have space on their private property to be able to just go set up tables and accommodate that outdoor dining. And then as far as the sidewalk cafes, it's a little bit of a different process that goes through a permitting process through the city clerk's office on an annual basis. So I guess just so you guys are aware that those conversations are being had, and keeping an eye to this summer and continuing to support those restaurants in the face of capacity limitations. Another item that's come up and I'm pursuing is this idea of possibly refinancing our current bond. And Eric and I will be meeting next week to kind of look at our finances, at our capital projects coming up, what that's going to look like if we need to look at bonding for some of these larger scale projects, and possibly, like I said, refinancing our existing bond to take advantage of these lower interest rates. So Gary Simpson with the city has put me in touch with his bonding consultants. So I'm going to be working with them to see if that's a beneficial move for us, and hoping that it will be and save us some money. I've also been working with a business owner on 3rd Street who is pursuing a liquor license. So this would be my first time going through the liquor licensing process. So I'm looking forward to doing that and learning more about it. I'm finding it's very complex as far as the liquor licensing laws. So good learning opportunity for him and for me. I've also been meeting with Jen Tucker with the MEDC on a couple of different initiatives. One are some business retention meetings, just touching base with some of our businesses. How are they doing, in the face of COVID? What plans are they having for the future? What resources can we provide them? Just to keep those conversations going now that, fingers crossed, that we're coming out the other side, and want to continue to provide that support. Also, a couple of potential grant projects, which I don't want to get into too much detail at this point since it's just new, but we have a couple on the horizon that we're working with some developers on. The other thing that's currently going on is our audit. So I'm working with the auditor to provide all the necessary documents and finally be able to close out our fiscal year. It's kind of goofy the way that it works with our fiscal year ending September 30th, and here it is the end of March, and we're just now closing out our books, but that's the way it goes in government, I suppose. And next week, I will be serving as a panelist with the Michigan Downtown Association Spring Workshop. They've asked me to participate, talking about our events and how we've modified our events in the face of COVID and how they might look moving forward, both this summer and long term. One other thing I wanted to mention was our facade grant program is nearing its end. We have 2 projects that are currently finishing, well, one's finishing up, being Black Rocks. The other one is the Quinnell Law Office on the 400 block of West Washington Street. Just received notification that they are looking to start that project next week. So that'll be our last one. Once that one's done this summer, we'll close out that grant for good. It's been 2.5 years, 3 years we've been working on that. So very proud of the progress we've made, of all of those grantees who participated in that program, and looking forward to calling that a successful closed out grant.
When do we get to meet at Black Rocks for a beer to celebrate?
Well, anytime. We can celebrate mid-project too. And other than that, I will be leaving on vacation tomorrow and will be gone next week. So if you need to get a hold of me, email me and I may respond or I might not. But either way, I'm going to enjoy my vacation. And that's all I had for director's report.
Awesome. Well, is Sean on the line? I don't know if he's muted. I'm assuming
I'm
we
here.
have no one. Sean, you're there. Is there anyone there for public comment?
No, there's not.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll get to board member comment then, and I'm just going to go in order of I seeing it. We'll start with you, Nicole.
Just a formal welcome to Mark, our newest member. Thanks for joining on. It's a pretty good group of people. We can get a lot done and have some fun. And then I just wanted to say to Rebecca, I wanted to thank you. I noticed that some trash had blown over in Jackson Cut Alley yesterday, and I was just about to send one of my cooks out to go pick it up, and there was a DDA maintenance guy out there picking up all this trash. So I really appreciated them kind of seeing it and taking the initiative to keep our streets looking good. So looking forward to, looking forward.
Pass it along.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if it was super windy the past couple of days, so I think it was just a garbage can or something, but definitely looking forward to spring and summer and restaurant week coming up, and getting back to some more normality.
The DDA guy is probably an applicant for the supervisor's position.
Wow. Thank you, Nicole. Rob, how about you next? Oh, you're muted, Rob.
There we go.
There
Well,
you
welcome to Mark. I beat you to this board by a week, so it's only my second meeting, but welcome. Yeah, I'm excited as things are starting to get a little more normal. Maybe that's just spring in the air, but certainly a little more capacity in the restaurants, and looking forward to events in the summer. It's a good time.
Thanks, Rob. How about you, Eric?
As everyone else, so welcome, Mark. Glad to kind of have a full board here for a few months anyways. So welcome, but other than that, just like everyone else, enjoying some of the warm weather and looking forward to spring and what that brings to the area. So
No doubt. Thank you, Eric. Jim?
I want to welcome Mark as well, and just let him know what a great job he's done remodeling his home church there. You know, I've always wondered what the inside looked like, and it looks very nice, you know, from looking at it right now. And we do have a good group here, and, you know, starting in June, it's going to be much better. And sorry, I just had to do that. We're both Italian, so he understands. But, you know, I did
They
have.
shouldn't do that. Go ahead.
But looking at the dates as to when we're done, I'm going to be done next the end of the year here. So I guess one thing I'd really like to see if we could accomplish before this year is getting a TIF on 3rd Street. So I don't know what the procedure is, but I don't know, we've been talking about it for years, but I don't know how Mike feels about it. I seem to remember he was in favor of it before. So if we could get something going on that, it'd be great, you know, for 3rd Street and the city as a whole. And we're, you know, the longer we wait, the more money we're going to miss out on. And I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, why don't we go to you?
I feel welcome with open arms. It's been very educational being here for my first meeting. I'm really not sure where I would like to, what committee I would like to take part of, committees.
Parking,
But
it's the best one.
Parking is by far the sexiest committee of them all. And that deserves the highest regard.
Lifespan's like 3 months. Sorry.
Everyone's got to throw themselves on that grenade for a little while, apparently. I'm not ready to do that just yet. But I would like to express an interest in being at least part of the conversation of the flag displaying policy. So the events and promotions committee, I feel like, you know, that policy that currently sits, I was reviewing it here. I think it's a great framework, but there is a little bit of ambiguity, some clarity that needs to be brought so that it just reads without any question, as Jeremy already said. When an application comes in, it needs to be evaluated immediately. There shouldn't be a point of discussion being brought to the board. I think it just needs to say, oh, yep, it either fits or it doesn't. And I'd like to be part of that discussion. So whoever, wherever, whenever gets the ball rolling on that, please email me or phone call if we set up an additional meeting at some other point.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Definitely. Thank you, Mark.
We'll be in touch with that.
Mike?
Hey, first of all, I think you made me last on purpose, and I find that hurtful.
Jeremy still has to go.
Who didn't go yet?
Jeremy.
Oh yeah, he's automatically last. Again, welcome to Mark. I wanted to. I was going to follow up on Jim's comments. I mean, I think that that your home is absolutely cool and beautiful. And maybe one of these meetings, you can give us a little tour. You know, if your wife is like my wife, she'll probably say no, but you know, maybe just accidentally are you on a balcony or a deck? Is that, or a loft? Is that where you're on there?
It's a loft, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I just think it's really nice, and thank you for coming.
When the weather warms up, Black Rocks or no, I'll have you guys over for a walk through, and we'll have a beverage out on the deck.
There
Cool.
you go.
Cool. And I want to mention that I violated my own little policy of what I was going to talk about, that these meetings are public. Okay. And I just made a hand gesture that's now officially on the record somewhere on YouTube or something. So we need to keep that in mind when we say and do things. And maybe just for Mark's benefit, that these are public meetings and we have to follow the Open Meeting Act. And generally when we meet in person, we very seldom get the public. But it just reminds me, I don't know if you guys paid attention, a month or so ago, there was a school board in California that had a Zoom meeting and they didn't realize they were on, and they were just bad mouthing the parents left and right. I mean, calling them every name in the book, and not realizing that the parents were actually watching. And so the entire school board ended up resigning. I think it was a smaller community, but we got to keep that in mind. And anyway, what's that?
I have to laugh because I did warn Mark about the fact that these meetings are televised, and also that you somehow find that challenging. It's funny that this has come up at this point in time.
Well, you know, and there's a reason why Jeremy's always sitting in his car when he does this.
You know it.
I'm convinced he's at Sheriff's Park without any pants on. Watching.
All you got to do is park next to me.
So that's all I have.
And to be fair, the only person we need to worry about in the public meetings is the city manager.
Pretty much.
But I guess getting to my comments here, Rob and Mark, I do want to make sure we include you in getting into a committee role. Mark, why don't we make sure, it sounds like Becky's already taken the action to get you included in the business development promotions. Rob, are you okay jumping on the parking committee? I think that would be really beneficial.
Yep.
And then at least that way we can kind of get the ball rolling and you guys can get your feet wet. And then if you don't like it, well, come January, we redo it anyway. So
all right, sounds good.
But with that, once again, welcome, Mark. I look forward to having a beverage with you. Look forward to having a beverage with all of you once we get through this time. Other than that, I really don't have any other comments other than congratulations on finally taking some time off, Becky. I know
Thank you.
The DDA appreciates you finally using many of your hours, and we look forward to you continually doing that.
Thanks.
All right. With that, I'm going to adjourn.
Do it as well.
With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I look forward to speaking to you guys again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye now.
Take care.
Bye.